This episode of the Nerfherder Council is brought to you by Audible. Get your free 30-day trial and a free audiobook download by visiting audibletrial.com/NHC.
Warning. The following podcast contains irreverent humor, exceptionally nerdy opinions, potential cursing, and plenty of love for the prequels. If any of the preceding offends you, please turn off this podcast immediately, and may the Force be with you.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf-herder!
You can't use that word! Only we can use that word!
It's time for the Jedi to end.
You're tuned in to the Nerfherder Council, your source for Star Wars opinion, conversation, and debate, featuring your hosts, JT. I mean, they killed his mother. What's he supposed to do? Send him a postcard? I wish you wouldn't have done that. AJ.
Well, if you don't remember something you already saw, that does not count as a spoiler. That counts as you not paying attention.
Steve.
It's like what was it, Force Friday at Toys R Us last year? It's just everybody's normal, and then something about microphones, and everything's lit now.
On this episode of the Nerfherder Council, we bring on special guest Dan Terry of the Discography Discussion podcast to talk about the Thrawn trilogy, George Lucas hatred, and J.J. Abrams returning to direct Episode 9.
This is the Nerfherder Council.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerfherder Council. I am your host, JT. With me, as always, AJ and Steve. And we actually have somebody on the Moof Milker mic with us tonight. Long distance, all the way from St. Louis. We have, from the Discography Discussion podcast, Mr. Daniel Terry. Say hello to the fine people in Star Wars land.
Hello, fine people in Star Wars land. I hope it's been a very Star Warsy day for you. This fine day of... What day is it?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay, cool.
Well,
Awesome.
no planets
Same
have blown
page.
up, but we tried to sink a city.
Yeah, right.
No,
yeah,
it's Sunday, air quotes.
Oh,
when
that's
the show
right, yeah.
comes out.
Dun, 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 on this lovely Sunday.
We're letting people behind the curtain here.
Right.
Pay no attention to the fat guy behind the curtain. So
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I'll exit the premises at some point.
it's me we're talking about, not you, dude.
I don't know, man.
This might be a posthumous podcast, actually, for me, because I'll actually be rafting in West Virginia on Sunday, and who knows? I might drown by the time this comes out.
That's really creepy.
That would be, it'd be, I don't know how much tagging I would do on that. If I find that out, like, oh my God.
We're gonna he's gonna die. We're gonna put this out and forget about it. Be listening back, be like, holy, he actually said that.
It's prophetic.
JT and I will put a 7-second bumper at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, instead of the audible thing, it'll be like R.I.P. AJ.
So I just need to make sure that my guesting tonight really works out, right? 'Cause
Right.
You'll need a new host. Yeah.
I was gonna say you might have to take AJ's place.
Right.
Now, Steve, if you have to put together some sort of memoriam for me, I want Krennic's theme as the sound bed for it, okay?
I'm just okay.
Hux doesn't have a theme, otherwise it'd be Hux.
So I'll just
Ugh.
play that in a bunch of Hux sounders, and we'll just call it a day.
When I get up to do your eulogy, I'll be like, here, AJ lies. We'll just do nothing but Star Wars quotes for your funeral.
That's awesome. Please do.
So, anyways, as I said, our buddy Dan here is from an awesome music podcast that I guested on the other night. It's called Discography Discussion. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself, Dan, and what you got going on?
Not a whole lot about me other than I do host a podcast called Discography Discussion. And what we do on that podcast is, this is going to be really hard for you guys to believe, but we discuss the discographies of bands. Whoa.
Simple and to the point.
Yeah, we're not like super clever, so we figure the only way to really stimulate good conversation about music is just to start from the beginning and go to the end. And with a lot of the bands that we've covered, it is a very interesting journey indeed. And then we just kind of got to a point where we started getting tired of talking to ourselves, so we started inviting other people onto the podcast, and
Right.
Hilarity has ensued. But yeah, we've really only been doing this since about I guess January. So we're only about we're getting our feet wet. We're like at 30 something episodes, so we're not a household name until I think next week or so, and I think we'll be a household name.
We on this show know the feeling. So,
right.
Except ours has been like 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're too lazy to put that many episodes out that quickly, though.
Yeah.
Is this like Hooters,
Yeah.
the soon to be relatively famous?
Yeah,
I guess so, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Where will he be in 12 minutes? Yeah.
So how did you first discover Star Wars? Because I know you said that you wanted to talk about that. Like, what is your connection to Star Wars, and why did you want to come onto a Star Wars podcast and co-host with us?
Well, so I considered myself a Star Wars nerd, a huge Star Wars nerd, until about a week ago when I started listening to your podcast on the regular, and then I realized that I know like absolutely nothing. However,
Join the group, man.
yeah.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
So
Jesus.
basically, I didn't get okay. So this is weird, right? So I was raised hardcore Pentecostal religious. So I would say probably, I guess whenever I was like 4 or 5, I think we still had TV at our house, but like we went crazy religious. Our family did. And I think pretty much from the ages of about, I guess, 5 years old until maybe I was like maybe 10 or 11, we didn't have television. So no television, no movies, no video games, no music, nothing. So finally, my parents got this great idea and stopped doing that, and we kind of normalized out after a couple of years. So actually, the very first time I saw Star Wars, I must have been probably like I want to say it was 9 or 10, and I actually watched it for the first time on the USA Network with commercials and everything. And I actually so then I found out that it was going to be on later that night. So like I got the VCR tape out and I put it in and set it up to record. So probably my first, 60, 70 times watching Star Wars. I watched it with commercial breaks.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of patience. It's weird too, because when I watch the films now, like I can still tell you like when the commercial breaks are going to come on.
Yeah.
It's just burned into my mind. But I was really, really obsessed, and this was a time, I guess, before Shadows of the Empire. It was kind of before Star Wars like really came back.
Okay.
Because there was this period, I think, between the end of Jedi and as far as cinematically goes, there was this period of time where Jedi had come out, and everybody still loved Star Wars, but I guess Lucas wasn't sure if it was still a viable thing, which I believe is why he kind of launched the Shadows of the Empire campaign, with the video game and the book and the comics and all that, just to see like, hey, if I did another Star Wars thing, would people care? Well, yes, of course we care. So I became really obsessed with Star Wars. Memorized the original trilogy, and then I got really into Star Wars books. And this is what's so interesting about it is I actually knew about Star Wars before I knew about Star Wars before I actually knew about the films, because the very first Star Wars book, or the very first Star Wars thing that I ever was exposed to, was The Last Command by Timothy Zahn.
Wow.
On audio cassette. I got it from the library.
Damn.
And I listened to it, and I didn't know who any of the characters were, so I had to like figure out, because it's not like I could just go on Google and look all that stuff up. So like, it was funny because I listened to that story like a whole bunch of times because it was cool, even though I didn't really understand it. I didn't know what the Force was or like what a lightsaber was or anything like that. And so it wasn't until I saw the movies that I was like, oh my God, that story makes tons of sense now.
So now, isn't The Last Command, isn't that the third book in the Thrawn trilogy?
I believe so, yes.
I know the first one's Heir to the Empire. What's the second one?
That's Dark Force Rising.
That's right. Okay. I listened to the audiobooks of those. I did it one time. So
yeah.
the titles, I was always kind of like, I just know it's book 1, 2, and 3. So
did you listen to the which audiobook? Did you just do the Audible one or?
Yeah, it was actually on Audible. And funny thing about that is that you can go to audibletrial.com/NHC where you can get a free 30-day trial of the Audible service and download a free audiobook. So, I did it. I told you we beat jokes to death on this show, man. So
It's all good, man.
we are shilling, but yeah, it was probably not. Well, I don't know, because I don't know how many versions of the book they would have out on audiobook, but it was.
They started with an abridged version, actually.
I didn't.
Right, and that's what I heard.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah.
I know I heard the full one because I never listened to abridged stuff. Drives me nuts. I refuse to listen to an abridged version of anything because I just have to have everything.
Yeah, they for the 20th anniversary of the book, they did like the full version, and I don't think they followed up with the other two books in the series, actually. So the Heir to the Empire is the only one you can get unabridged right now, as far as I know.
I don't know about that.
At least with the full usual Star Wars audiobook production. I think they're like unabridged versions, but they're read by somebody else. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't care for them. I mean, I really like those original abridged versions for one reason. Number one, it was the first Star Wars thing I ever heard.
Right.
So that's, huge, right? But the second reason is because they're actually they're read by Anthony Daniels.
Yes.
So like he does all the voices for all the characters relatively well, and obviously the C-3PO voice is spot on. But
you would hope so.
Right? Yeah. If he screws that up, we need to reevaluate the company drinking policy.
Yeah. Who the fuck is this?
Right. Right. So yeah. So I mean that was huge for me, and I remember like. So it's weird because when I'm being exposed, and I'm sorry, I'm probably jumping head first into the topic here, but
that's okay.
We like for me, so this whole hard on that I have for Thrawn is, I guess, the idea that he was the very first Star Wars villain that I was introduced to. I mean, like, yeah, the Emperor was mentioned in The Last Command, but it was always in flashback. So I was like, well, this guy's clearly not a threat.
Yeah.
And Darth Vader was barely mentioned at all. So I mean, I didn't even really get the whole Darth Vader thing until later. It's just kind of a weird history, but I guess that it's solidified to me that no matter what was happening in the Star Wars trilogy, that this greater threat, this Thrawn, this tactical genius, was going to be there after the positive resolution of the trilogy. So I kind of went into it already kind of knowing the continued story, even though Disney would have me believe that continuing story is not actually the continuing story.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, so yeah, let's get into it. You wanted to talk about the Thrawn trilogy to start out, the show. So that's kind of an interesting way of looking at things. And you discovered Star Wars through a novel, and it wasn't even it wasn't even the trilogy. It was the third book of a trilogy. So it really kind of. So what was the first thing that grabbed you, or the first things that grabbed you about this? Considering you didn't, as you said, you didn't have the movies to look at to get your ideas of Han Solo and Princess Leia and Darth Vader and all that stuff. Like it was literally the written word. So what was it that grabbed you first?
Well, and it wasn't even the written word as much as, again, it was an audio book. So it's not like I was like sitting there reading the book. If I was smarter, I would have just checked the book out from the library.
Started from book one. Yeah.
Yeah. But for some reason I was a kid, and I just, again, like, you don't necessarily know that there's book one, or like, I'm not, especially even now, I'm not like horribly attention detailed.
You just go to the library and you saw something cool on the cover of it, and you're like, I'm going to check that out.
Star Wars, this dude's holding this laser sword. No, it was actually a chick. I think it's Mara Jade on the cover of that. And I'll have to look at it.
I've read many a comic books for that very reason. And you're just like, I don't know what the hell a Green Lantern is, but the cover of this looks cool. I'm going to check it out from the library and read it.
Right.
You're like, when are they going to get to the redheaded chick with the jugs? I don't care about this laser sword crap.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, no, she turned out to be a main character, so yeah.
Right.
Yes. But no, it was really it was fascinating for me because I guess the one thing that I remember the most that really grabbed me, and this explains a lot about the kind of music I like now too as an adult. There's this part where Anthony Daniels is trying to do his very best Palpatine impression. And he's talking like Mara Jade. She like flashes back to the Emperor telling her to kill Luke Skywalker, and he's like, "You will kill Luke Skywalker," and almost this like black metal-ish, shriek,
right?
And I thought that was really cool, and for whatever reason, that like really like brought me into it, because I was like, okay, well, what's the context for this,
Yeah.
And so it's really weird. It's like, because they're referring back, because no matter how much people tell you about the expanded universe, it is still so heavily dependent on the original trilogy that you can't really go into it without knowing a few basics, So going into this, not knowing who Darth Vader was, not really knowing who the Emperor was. I mean, they made it clear that he was the bad guy because he talks like Satan,
Yeah.
and all that. But yeah, no, that really grabbed me because I guess I liked just the stupid raw coolness of it, and I started really getting invested in this character called Luke, who I didn't know even was going to be, because it's really weird, right? Because I haven't seen the movies, but I know Luke, Han, and Leia because they're all in the book, and they're written in such a way that they were pretty consistent with their personalities in the movie, which is funny because like watching the Han and Leia romance develop in the movies, and I'm like, well, they're married.
Yeah.
Like straight up, I'm like they're married, so whatever he's trying is working.
It's like the original trilogy was almost like the prequels for you, because it came.
It really was
something that happened
so
before what you knew.
Were like ancient history, like
damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I see, it's interesting because I have been on record as saying I'm not a big fan of the novels.
Sure.
I always, you and I started talking about it, off air, but I don't know, man. The books to me were always like, I had such a hard on for him. It was like, I was like, look, if George Lucas didn't write it, then it doesn't count. So, I mean,
I understand that. Yeah.
And I listened to him and I was like, okay, this is not bad, but something about it, it just always kind of got to me. So, and it's kind of interesting to hear your perspective, because it's like, if you were getting into the Luke character based on an audiobook, obviously they must, Zahn must have done a great writing job, considering everybody got into Luke from the movies. So,
well, yeah, and he didn't have to be a great writer either, because all he had to do was copy this character that was already pre-established. That's one of the that's one of the reasons why science fiction writers criticize people that write Star Wars books, because they say it's an easy way out of having to actually flesh out real characters.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think coming as someone who actually had the original trilogy in mind when I first got into those books, like as I was consuming those books, to me it seemed like I was just experiencing another movie script. Like, he nailed those characters so perfectly.
Absolutely.
Like, did you have the same experience going back from the book to the movies, where like, was there any sort of disconnect for you? Like, well, this isn't what the character's like. It's not like.
Well, as a 9-year-old, probably not. So, like, when I was a 9-year-old, I wasn't like, well, if you compare the character traits between, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I'm 9,
Yeah.
like, there's cool stuff, and oh my God, she's wearing a metal bikini, like, so, like,
your first boner.
This isn't
right,
the character arc.
Everybody's right.
Yeah,
This is not the character arc of Leia. I remember.
Right. I wasn't like, oh my God, the characterization. But as an adult, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he nailed it. He nailed it on a level that I think most writers don't, because like, if you look at a character, I've seen them do weird stuff with Luke, in some of the expanded universe stuff.
Yeah.
And from what I hear, they're going to do some weird stuff with Luke in the next movie, stuff that we're not going to be probably expecting. And
God, I hope so.
right. Something crazy, right?
That's the nice thing about being one of the official movies, though, is, you could take Luke into left field in episode 8, because it's episode 8, so you're allowed to mess with the characters. If you do that same thing in a book, people are going to be like, well, this is a crap novel. That's nothing like Luke Skywalker would be.
An army of nerds would march on the capital of Lucasville and call it non-canon. I mean,
Right.
It's like nerddom is a great thing, right? But but yeah, no, I think entirely that, yeah, it's I think the cool thing about it being in a movie is that it's the law now, right? Like, once it's in a movie, that's for real. That's what everybody's going to see. Not everybody's going to pick up a 350-page Star Wars novel and read through it, unless you're me and you feel like that's actually what's real.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, obviously as an adult, I do hold the movies, at a higher level than even the novelizations. And that's why I was so disappointed, I guess, with okay, disclaimer, not disappointed with episode 7 as a whole, but actually just disappointed that, my continuing story is now no longer the continuing story.
Right. Compared to what could have been, this is what you got instead.
Right. Well, yeah, I basically got the exact same setup from the last trilogy.
I felt the exact same way when they killed Star Killer as canon and said Star Wars Rebels was the new story that went in between 3 and 4. So I know exactly where you're coming from on that.
Yeah. I actually do enjoy that show because, Thrawn's on it. But it is one of those things where, I absolutely agree. Like, it's like, stop taking the stuff that we like as fans and just hacking it to pieces. But it's like you have to, right?
Well, I mean, I guess they don't have to because, like I said, they brought Maul back and in Clone Wars, and now they've got Thrawn. So I mean, it's a matter of time until you see Mara Jade. I mean, that's really
right.
Now that I brought it up, I want Star Killer. Damn it!
It's gonna bring him back. It's gonna bring him back. See, I don't know. I was never into the EU, so it's like when they restarted it, I was like, okay. And I always battled with people because there's like a million books in the EU, and everyone's like, well, that stuff has to be canon. I'm like, well, which ones? There's like
not really. Like, is Splinter of the Mind's Eye canon?
Yeah.
Like, have you read that book? Oh my God.
Yeah.
It is literally. It might as well just be called Star Wars non-canon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, that was awful. And like, not all of these expanded universe books are created equal.
Yeah, well, there was no continuity when those things were being written. Like, they could just straight up conflict each other and no one cared.
Yeah.
I think at first they do. Because I remember actually the copy of Heir to the Empire, which again, it's all the way over there and I'm lazy. But the version of it that I had was that I still have. It does say that everything in the book was pre-approved by George Lucas himself. Now, did George sit down and read the whole thing? I'm sure he read the Cliff Notes version of it.
Yeah.
But I think in the very beginning, because for a while there really weren't Star Wars. I mean, you had
oh, you bumped your USB, man. What are you doing? You're way down in the mix now.
You're down in the trash compactor. We're up in the detention center.
Yeah, get back up here. Nope, still down.
Oh,
we're hearing rumbling, which is good.
Passing through their magnetic field.
Nope, you're still. Got to get some new equipment over there on Discography Discussion.
We're gonna have to actually.
We are not in Discography Discussion studio.
I'm gonna have to actually edit this episode.
What are you doing? you better respect one now.
Well, I have no talent as one, so there you go.
Hey, we're hearing the, but you're still way far in the background.
Yeah, that's really bad, right?
There you go.
No, now you're back.
That's weird. I just switched to okay.
You went back to the old USB.
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
All right, whatever. Anyway, what was the stupid thing I was saying?
Yeah.
We were talking about how Lucas approved all the story points of the Thrawn trilogy.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if he did it with the other books because for a while there were no Star Wars, like there were no real Star Wars books. You had Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which I think Lucas had to allow him to release because like he wrote it as a sequel. There's a whole story behind that I don't know.
Yeah.
And but that was pretty much it. And I think that experience made Lucas not really want to open anything up to books. So whenever he opened it up to books, it was like, no, I have to approve everything. And so I think his rule originally was you can do this whole New Republic thing, but you can't change anything that was established in the original trilogy. And you can't go back into the original trilogy unless it's Shadows of the Empire, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between not squashing something and endorsing it.
Absolutely.
So he let these things come out under the Star Wars banner, but it's not like George Lucas was there going, "Hey, this is the real story of Star Wars." Nah, he always held that opinion like, "Hey, if I want to tell a story that contradicts what came in a book, well, F you."
Right. I think he just, he's like, I like money. You guys like money?
Right.
So
yeah, I feel like all these ideas came across George's desk one day and they all had money in with the rough drafts and he just signed off on everything without reading it and said, screw it, publish the thing.
Hey, George, we want to drop a moon on Chewbacca. Is that okay?
Totally.
Yeah.
there
That
was
sounds good.
There was $100 bill stapled to it. You're going to print it.
It's like, I'll tell you when the check clears.
Yeah.
All the battery died. My lightsaber pen.
Yeah.
He just had a rubber stamp at that point anyways. He just spread them all out on his desk. It was just stamp, print them all.
Well, remember, he literally did, like, in the behind the scenes, he had a stamp for all, like, approved concept art. Like, okay, yes, we're going to go with that one. Stamp.
Yep.
It was
literally
just a
George
signature
Lucas
with a little name, a little sentence at the bottom that says like approved from the desk of or something. It had his little fake signature on it.
Yeah, it's like literally the George Lucas seal of approval.
Oh, good God.
And you could probably see it as it went down the line. Like he had like 30 things there and the ink just kept getting drier and drier because he wouldn't even go back to the damn blotter again.
He didn't give a
Yeah.
What most people don't know is that he had a flannel pattern ink pad for that thing.
Oh, now that's worth knowing.
Could you imagine that? The damn blotter's like flannel.
I just picture everything in the office is just flannel. The chair, the desk, just everything.
It looks like Spaceball 1 when or it looks like the cockpit of the Eagle 5 when they've gone to plaid.
What the hell was that? Spaceball 1. They've gone to plaid.
You just see George's face floating, thinking is in front of a green screen of plaid.
Now that reminds me of a nightmare I had once, but
nice. Yeah. See, my experience with the books was like I haven't read or actually I haven't read any. I did all of them with the ones I did on audiobook, but I really didn't.
Audiobook from where?
I actually did it on audible.com, which if you go to audibletrial.com/NHC, you can get a free 30-day trial of the Audible service and a free audiobook download. But
I think don't you only have to plug it once per show?
I'm practicing.
All right, good call. I don't have sponsors, so it's easier for me to trash talk.
Don't worry about it.
To go back and count probably the 15 to 20 that might have been on the first episode.
Yeah.
We had this available to us.
The hard part is actually when the show's over and I have to go back behind the chair here to the dead horse and just start whipping it, remembering how many times I did it during the show. So. But
nice.
Yeah, but I mean, I listened to the ones I did listen to on audiobook, and I honestly listened to the Thrawn trilogy just because I'd heard so much about it. It wasn't even like oh man, I really want to listen to this, because again, I always had that outlook of, well, this isn't written by George Lucas. And I have to admit that when they announced the Disney sale, and then they were talking about, okay, well, George Lucas has nothing to do with it. Originally, he was going to be creatively involved or something, and then they said, no, it's just going to, he's not involved at all. They're not using his story treatments. I actually was a little bit pissed. I was like, so you can actually get ideas from the creator of Star Wars and you're going to give him the finger? Well, like whatever, man.
They gave him 4 billion reasons to go away.
Yeah.
It was kind of a good call though, right? I mean, towards the end, like he's dead, right? But no, like towards the end of his control over Star Wars. I mean, and again, this is just my observation, just looking at a guy on a computer screen, but he just kind of started seeming really disinterested and not really above just throwing an answer out just to have it. Because I remember they were trying to make this Darth Maul video game a while back. And maybe not too long ago, but it was supposed to be this Darth Maul video game, and I don't even know if it came out or not. But they had to have, like, Lucas had to come in and have final say, and they had concept art for Darth Maul, and they had concept art for this like antagonist that he was going to fight or something. I don't remember the exact thing, but shoot, see, I'm botching this. But basically, they showed him concept art for Darth Maul and another character, and the other character was from like the old Knights of the Old Republic storyline, like all that like really ancient Jedi stuff.
Okay.
And Lucas was like, yeah, these guys need to be friends.
Wow.
and these guys were like, first of all, that's Darth Maul. That's a character you created. Second of all, this other guy is not even related to him continuity wise, like whatsoever. So he's like, I don't know, make him a clone. It's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? Like,
It's just,
That's his answer for everything.
yeah.
yeah, this is not. Yeah, it's like Stan Lee's like, I don't know, make him a mutant. I don't have to come up with an origin story if they're a mutant, you know.
Like Terminator. They all count. It's an alternate timeline because they travel in time.
Yeah, it all works. But yeah, he just seemed really, really disinterested. And like, I mean, I'm gonna try not to bash the prequels too much, but I totally will. But I mean, you know, like to me, the prequel trilogy to most people starts off bad and ends good. And I actually almost feel the exact opposite.
What?
Believe it or not. And please, whenever I say that, I'm not trying to say that episode 1 was like, oh my God, let me buy another ticket.
What the hell?
I know, right?
Wow, that is an opinion I've never heard anywhere. You
remember when I told you not to out troll the troll?
Wow. if this is clickbait bullshit, you and I are gonna have some words.
It's not, dude. It's my actual opinion.
So you actually think that episode 1 is a better movie than episode 3?
Yeah, I think it's a stronger. Okay, I think it's a stronger. I'm not gonna say script because that's really not the word for it. I think it's a stronger premise, and I think it's a much more original premise. So this is how I take it.
Wow.
Episode 1 wants to do something different because that movie is not very Star Warsy. It almost looks. I remember a lot of people saying whenever episode 1 came out, and don't get me wrong, when I was a kid and I saw it, I loved it.
Right. Well, I still love it.
Star Wars movie, and there was a kid in it, and I was a kid. That's awesome, you know. What was his name again? Anakin. Oh
yeah.
Wait, that's going to end badly for him.
Yeah, right.
So,
ooh, I remember that name.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where, you know, Phantom Menace is a long movie that's kind of hard to watch, but it has a whole lot of original characters in it. The worlds seem different. You know, there's not a lot of rehash. We'd never seen Coruscant before. We had never seen Coruscant. We had never seen Naboo. We'd seen lots of Tatooine, but really Tatooine. Well, yeah, they did Tatooine to death. But essentially, like this movie was very. It had a lot of different locations in it. It was a lot of different like races of aliens that we had never seen before, and this concept of there being different Sith than what we had in the original trilogy. So like Darth Maul was kind of an original character, and almost played off to be like the Darth Vader figure, even though he turned out not to be at all.
Unfortunately.
But no, I like the idea of like Qui-Gon Jinn is a Jedi Master that we don't know, and then he reports to this council. I guess what bugs me is that okay, so you've got that story that, you know, they introduce Palpatine, you know what's going to go on with that. They introduce Anakin, so like they set everything up, but it's all done in a very casual, non-assuming sort of way.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then Attack of the Clones comes out, and it's like, oh my god, everyone hated the Phantom Menace. Let's make this movie as Star Warsy as possible.
See,
so we need Stormtrooper lookalikes. We need Walker lookalikes. We need the enemy ships to kind of look a little kind of sort of like TIE fighters.
And to me, episode 2 was the least Star Warsy because it was. It's almost like a whodunit. It's like a mystery movie.
Obi-Wan sleuthing around.
Yeah. So to me, it was different. It was not just a standard. Well, there's good guys and bad guys. They're gonna fight. It was like they threw like a little monkey wrench in there with Obi-Wan's adventure and the Camino saber dart and all that stuff. And so I thought that was kind of cool. So
I guess with that movie kind of hits me like a bland vanilla wafer that had been laying on a table for 3 days. Because yes, the prequel trilogy has tons and tons of really good ideas, but it's the execution of these concepts. Okay, do I think Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi is rock solid? Yes, I do. I love that man. I think he did great.
Totally agree.
Highlight of the trilogy. Yep.
Absolutely. And I think a reviewer that I won't mention here for, reasons of not getting beheaded.
Hate that guy.
Once said that Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi should have been should have been taken out of the script and replaced with a new character called Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like and it's kind of interesting if you think about that, like what he would have been like in the Qui-Gon role and his own role. You know, like I think it probably would have been fine. But they needed someone to die because this is Star Wars. You know.
Well, I guess.
So the second movie had a lot of really good ideas. Like, you know, like yeah, sure, I loved the detective story idea of it, the whodunit. I think it was a little weird though how they introduced Christopher Lee's character. What is his name? Count Dooku.
Count Dooku, yeah.
Yeah, they introduced him a little late, I think, in the movie, which was like kind of really jarring because like I feel like in order for it to be an effective whodunit, like a Scooby-Doo mystery, Dooku should have been like walking around talking to everybody like within the first 5 minutes of that movie.
Then they would have had to pull his mask off, and he would have been like some amusement park owner, though. So it would have totally changed it, man.
Well, no, he could have been wearing like a Vader-esque mask or something at the end whenever they got him, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's you!" You know,
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling Jedi.
Right? Mind reading, yeah. So like.
Then Obi-Wan, Anakin got a couple of porgs for dogs.
God damn!
Oh my God! Porgs.
Are you as sick of porgs as I am?
I am now. I've been listening to your podcast for like a week and a half now, so it's woo, a lot of porg talk.
Well,
but seriously, they look really good.
Porg Watch 2017.
I don't know though. So the whole thing is that like
have the bumper.
I just can't. I can't even. But no, the whole thing of it is that movie had a really good idea behind it. I think there could have been more time with the script writing. I mean, the romance scene between Anakin and Padme was completely unbelievable. I know everybody criticizes that, but like, yeah, it's a big problem because it's wasting time. Because like I'm sitting there in the theater, like, okay, great, let's get on to one of the Obi-Wan scenes. Okay, great. Let's see what's Obi-Wan doing.
Yeah,
what's everyone's favorite Jedi doing right now? And you know. In a good movie, I shouldn't feel that way. I should be like, oh, Anakin and Padme. I wonder if they're just gonna like seriously just get it over with. You know,
not getting boobs. It doesn't deserve to be on the screen. Damn it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I feel like not to sidestep that movie too much, but that one. So the fanboy in me really didn't like what they did with Boba Fett's origin, because to me, Boba Fett shouldn't have an origin. The less we know about Boba Fett, the better.
Thank you.
Oh boy, here we go. You're gonna, you and AJ are gonna gang up on me on this one.
Got some backup finally. Thank you.
Yep. I'm just saying he's a mysterious figure, and then to like how else could you ruin this more? Okay, like let's make this mental jump. Not only is Boba Fett based off this dude named Jango Fett, which totally seems the same, but he's not even Jango's son, technically. He's a clone that I guess lives a normal lifespan. I didn't dig too deep.
They took out the age accelerant.
Yeah.
Right. So he's like, okay, it's my son, but he's me, whatever. Okay. So right there, you've already taken the identity and the humanity out of this character because, you know, Boba Fett doesn't have a mother or anything. Like he has no chance for like a tragic backstory or anything, which is fine because I really couldn't care less what Boba Fett's backstory is. But if it's something I don't like, I'll criticize it. But
that's what podcasts are for, man. Damn it.
Absolutely, man.
You don't care until it bugs you, then you care.
Oh, I care so much. So, but like to make this stretch of, okay, not only is Boba Fett, you know, a clone, but all the stormtroopers are clones of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Like, where the hell did that come from?
Well, I mean, they had to have clones in there somewhere because they talked about, you know, in episode 4, they had the one line, you know, during the Clone Wars. So there was a war. It involved clones, so they had to put it in here. If this is the backstory of the Empire and Anakin Skywalker and all this, they had to do something with it. So
sure. So create an impossible expectation based on stuff that because Lucas is going to maintain that he had all this crap planned out, but clearly he didn't, right?
I will always wonder about that.
Of that. If you just have to throw something in because you need to make a word match.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of that. I mean, the prequels in general, he had rough ideas, but I mean, those things went through so many rewrites. Episode 2 especially, that thing was still being revised on set. That's why there's so many deleted scenes and so
But
many.
nobody
alternate
looked at the
takes.
dialogue.
Well, that's the thing is like it was still being written as it was being shot. So clearly that was the one that he struggled the most with as far as like putting all the pieces together.
Honestly, that's like I don't have any complaints about the prequels. I won't even call myself a prequel apologist because I don't believe you have to apologize for them because I think they're kick-ass movies. I really enjoy them. But I mean, it took me years and years and just a whole bunch of internet hate to realize, oh my God, this dialogue sucks. Because it's like I went into it looking at it as like it's a Star Wars movie. It's not supposed to be, damn Shakespeare. It's just
right. Yeah,
the
original trilogy's not for sure. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying on that. Because it's not the original movies are full of like cool one-liners, but so is Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, right. And you brought up something a couple minutes ago that I kind of wanted to address because this is something that I find kind of interesting.
Okay.
You said something that I've heard a lot of other people mention that said, well, they have a backstory of Boba Fett and they just, they shoehorn these things in there and, you made the clones just look like stormtroopers. They just shoehorned all this stuff in there to make it Star Warsy. And people complain about that. But those same people will defend episode 7, even though they ripped an entire movie off. So in episode 7, so many people say, it's cool, it's Star Wars. But then when they start pulling some fan service crap for like the prequels, especially episode 2, they're bitching. It's like, well, what do you want? Which side are you on here? It's the same concept. Only one took an entire movie. So
well, I won't defend episode 7 for those reasons.
Yeah.
But because that kind of stuff annoys me to death of like, let's make this as much like the other thing as we can.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, move on, people. Unless we're talking about music, don't ever change. Always write the same album over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah, I don't.
But if you do that, I'll criticize you for being stale.
Man, you just like to jump all over stuff, don't you?
Yeah. Welcome to the internet.
Right?
Yeah, I think episode 7's biggest problem, there's that whole ring theory going on with Star Wars where you hit different beats back and forth and you have bookends and all these things. I think JJ tried that, but there's a difference between like retelling beats to create symmetry and just straight up ripping off something that's already been done. And it's not really symmetry at that point. That's not ring theory. That's just damn near plagiarism. But
ring
company endorsed plagiarism.
Ring theory bothers me because it's one of those things where you're taking something that's relatively basic and you're trying to make it way more complicated than it needs to be, or you're trying to find genius in something that isn't really genius. Like my band put out a crappy hardcore record 10 years ago and people would buy it and tell me, because like we weren't like great players, people would tell us that it sounded like progressive and avant-garde and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, no, we just couldn't play in time. Like it wasn't anything like magical, it literally is like what you're hearing is literally what it is. And I feel the same way about the prequel trilogy, is that it's, first of all, isn't it ridiculous to expect a movie to be another movie?
Oh yeah.
Right. Because it's not, right. It's a different thing.
That's so simple, but I've never heard that expressed before. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, it's ridiculous to have that expectation anyway. And as critics, because podcasters, that's what we do. We professionally criticize things or unprofessionally criticize things.
Yeah, exactly.
And really what it boils down to is, dude, I either liked this or I didn't like it. You know what I mean? It either got the job done for me or it didn't. And I think sometimes those conflicts get overly complicated because we pay for things. So there's a lot of purchase justification that goes into our enjoyment of a lot of things. So like with Star Wars Episode 1, for example, I mean, that movie was technically a success, right?
Made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those that was a success because it made the money that it needed to make. It's a Star Wars movie, right? People are going to buy tickets to it anyway. So, I mean, how many people went and saw Phantom Menace 2, 3, 4 times? Because however they felt about it or not, there was a conflict there of this must be really, really, really great. I just don't get it. So I need to continue to consume it over and over and over again. And I think those are the kind of people that come up with stuff like ring theory.
Yeah. I have to admit, I've wondered about that because I kind of think the same thing. I mean, I read a lot of that stuff. I'm actually Facebook friends with Mike Klimo, who's like the big architect of that type of thing. And it all makes sense, but it's like, are we reading too much into this? You know, can you dissect something too much to where it's like, dude, it really is just a movie.
Well, maybe it wasn't
Absolutely.
super cerebral, but I mean, he very deliberately put in nods to the original trilogy in the prequel trilogy. That wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
See,
I just think he's not the same filmmaker he was when he was a young man.
No one would be.
well, I mean, it was a different thing though, because he didn't write all the dialogue for the original trilogy. He only directed one of them. Unless
That had to be saved in editing.
Yeah. So it's like, but then in the prequel trilogy, he did all of it, and so you could tell that he needed outside help. It's like a band writing a record without a producer. It's like, well, yeah, you're gonna think it's perfect as is, but you need that outside ear.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I always wonder, like, what would you guys have thought of the prequels? And I know AJ and Steve, you guys like the prequels. You don't have a problem with it. You're not enormous honks for the prequels like I am, but. And, you know, all three of you guys, what would you think of the prequels if it had really good dialogue, but everything else was the same?
Man, that's hard, because without knowing what that would be like, I can't really formulate an opinion, because is it the dialogue itself? Like, were the words just poorly written, or were they poorly written and badly delivered, or were they just badly delivered?
I think some of them were ridiculous lines that were being expected to be delivered by good actors. And I don't think that, because nobody thinks that Natalie Portman's a bad actor. Well, some people do, I guess, but nobody thinks that Ewan McGregor is a bad actor, or Samuel L. Jackson is, you know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like you've got this all-star cast, and that's the reason I don't understand why people hate poor Hayden Christensen so much.
Yeah,
Because the poor guy was basically the main character and had to deliver some of the most ridiculous lines.
Yeah, we've actually talked about that. Like, the hate that guy gets is like completely
Totally unfounded.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Same thing for George Lucas. I think it's you know, we've discussed on the show before the fact that Star Wars fans kind of kill Star Wars because you know, George Lucas. I mean, he, like you said, he got lazy at the end. It was because he got so annoyed with people just crushing him that he was like, well, then fine, fuck you. You know, and he even at Celebration, you know, his first public Star Wars comments in a long time, he basically took a shot at his haters. He came out for the opening panel and they were interviewing him, and he took some digs at people that ripped the prequels and ripped him, and it was awesome.
Sure.
Because it's like he's in front of all these people and basically the world. And, you know, he's got a platform to give everybody the finger.
Now he literally answers to no one. He already, you know, got his payout and he's out.
Yeah.
So, take your shots. Why not?
And Hayden Christensen was the same thing. It's like, you know, people just completely crap on him. Oh, he's so wooden. He's so this. He has no chemistry. He was given horrible dialogue to try and turn into something real.
And poor direction, because, I mean, Lucas's direction to the original trilogy actors was, go do it.
Faster and more intense.
Yeah, you act. Go act.
Yeah.
Sure.
And here I am. I just sit on this other side of the spectrum of I've never sat down and dissected these movies like that. I've never cared to just dive into them and dissect them and tear them apart. I'm just like, it's all Star Wars. I'm okay with it. Like, I honestly don't care. It's just, they're there. It is what it is. Bitching about it isn't going to do anything different, so it's there. You know, who
it'll
cares?
make you feel better.
Yeah. See,
for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's for me, I'm the same way. Like, I dissect them because we talk about it and everything, but I think for me,
well, I mean, dissected to the point of trying to rip it apart about the way lines are delivered and this and that. Like, I don't
like we're all film school students.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't delve that deep into it. Like, I'll get into it with you over the direction of the movie and where it could possibly go from here and stuff like that. But Christensen's a crap ass actor because he delivered lines like he was a 2x4 or something. It's just, whatever. He delivered them how he delivered them. They all okayed it and put it on the screen. So screw it. It is what it is.
And hell,
Lucas said, "Yep, cut. That's good. Move on." It's his fault. Yeah.
It might even come down to editing too. Maybe there were better takes and Lucas just didn't use those takes.
Well, I was thinking about that with the script rewrites that were going on. Maybe he had to use some of those not so good takes in order to make it all fit.
It could be.
Yeah,
You know?
maybe the money ran out one day and it was just like, screw it. It's what it is. It's
don't
what
think-
it
I don't
is.
think the
We got to
money-
put it on the screen.
I don't think the money ever ran out.
No, no.
My Star Wars lunchboxes would say differently.
Yeah, right.
Um,
I always love in the documentary for Phantom Menace that they have on the DVD, because I'm a huge behind the scenes guy, and they're sitting around with, it's him and Rick McCallum and two other guys. It was John Knoll and somebody else, and they're talking about, it's one of the first preliminary meetings in the offices about the movie. He's like, well, we've only got a budget of this, and my very first reaction was bullshit. You
Right.
do not. You are so full of crap. You could have a budget of like $500 million, man, and damn well you would make it back. Stop it. Like, quit nickel and
absolutely.
diming it. So
Well,
that
you don't
George
even have to
wasn't
sell
gonna,
this at this point. Yeah. Like,
George wasn't
Yeah.
going to put up his own money ahead of it. So it was like, you took what the studios were going to give you, and he just said, they give us 500 million. Let's film it for 250, and I'm going to pocket the rest.
it's
right.
a profit. Yeah.
drinks on me, 4:00.
Yep. Lucas goes into the bank. He's like, yeah, I need to borrow money to make a movie. They're like, you're George Lucas. He's like, I'm broke. Money ran out. I don't got I make Star Wars. You make a lot of money. Okay, we'll loan you money.
Like to invest in more flannel shirt stocks, please.
Yeah.
Well, I did see a picture of him wearing a Han Shot First shirt, which I thought was like really great trolling, my friend. Like, my heart really went out to him there. I was like, dude, you have achieved it on a level that no one else ever has.
Right.
Like, I mean, because that's the reason I think everybody hates Lucas as much as they do. I don't think people hate Lucas for the prequel trilogy. It's like hating Metallica for one bad album, right? Like, he made some mistakes with the prequels, but like, I think their biggest issue with him is that he's been literally changing Star Wars since Star Wars came out.
Yeah. I don't agree with that either. I don't. I don't see what the big deal is. He didn't change the storyline. He did nothing. I mean, he changed graphics. He added a dumb Jabba the Hutt scene in episode 4.
A redundant one too, because half the lines he tells Jabba the Hutt, he tells to Greedo right before he totally doesn't shoot him in the bar.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, he adds graphics. So who gives a crap? And people act like he's just, the whole statement of, George Lucas raped my childhood, which is always a good one. Like,
If you bought a nice new green screen, you'd want to use it too, right?
Well, anybody who uses that phrase should actually get raped. It's like that way.
It's very disrespectful to people that actually had
It's-
problems with their childhood.
It's not even that. It's just like, it's such an extreme statement. It's not that bad, dude. It's like comparing Hitler to Trump. Like go read a history book, dude.
Right.
It's really not that bad. So like, I hate that stuff. It's like he changed graphics. He didn't change the story.
George
Everything
added a few
still happens.
graphics, and it affected your life so much over a movie.
Yeah.
Here's what it was for me. It didn't ruin my childhood. And this is something that I say on Discography Discussion, because you guys should totally go check that out. This is something I say on there all the time, is that just because they did this new thing doesn't mean they're taking away the old thing.
But that's where the rub
Except
comes
with Star
in.
Wars, that's exactly what he was doing for
Yep.
a while. It was like, oh, yeah, you guys want them unaltered? Well, I think there's some VHSs still floating around. They're like, no, dude, we want that on Blu-ray. And he's like, yeah, here's the thing. We had to ruin the original prints of the movie in order to add graphics. And it's like, first of all, I don't believe that.
Yeah, it's crap.
Even at all. I think maybe the original film was so deteriorated, from being on just, physical film, that maybe he just got tired of restoring it. Although he did restore it, because I've got the restored VHS tapes here in my basement. They look and sound great for VHS.
Yep.
But they're still the original film with no changes. There are a few changes in it, but like not visual, only audio.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. It's like he did it for us then, but I don't know. It almost seemed a little vindictive to me to make it really, really, really hard for you to obtain the original theatrical versions, which I actually do have. I do have the VHSs, and I also have the widescreen editions on Laserdisc as well.
I was going to ask you to bring that up to these guys. yes, Dan apparently doesn't like any audio format that came out after about 1992 because he's got a cassette collection, VHS, Laserdisc, like, you know,
those newfangled CDs the hell out of my face, damn it.
If it doesn't deteriorate over time, I don't want it.
Exactly. we all got to die,
right?
But you know, that's the whole thing, though. If you look back to what I had said originally about growing up Pentecostal, most of that really just stems from not having that stuff during the time that other people did.
So once you got your hands on it, you like kept a death grip on it.
Yeah,
I'm never throwing this out.
No, like, believe it or not, a lot of the stuff that I collect is relatively
Your childhood
new.
made you a hoarder.
No, not maybe. Yeah, that part's true. But the the part about just not having a lot of that stuff is that, like, you know, a lot of the very first music I ever heard was on cassette, and a lot of the first movies I saw were on VHSs that I'd like borrowed from friends' houses and stuff. And like it was one of those things where just having everything on that old format was just something that's very comforting to me. And it's basically just me playing catch up, you know. It's the same with video games. You know, I typically just play old video games, you know.
So what you're saying is in about 17 years, you're going to have a really sweet CD collection.
Oh no, I have a pretty sweet CD collection now, but yeah, no, it's a growing vinyl and tape collection for sure. Not going to go 8-track anytime soon, but
well, 8-track's not coming back, but vinyl is, so that one's pretty cool. But
hey, Laserdisc doesn't deteriorate over time.
Very true.
It does if you don't take care of it, like, you know, like your dog or your family. But that's just it, though. Like, it sucks though that, like, in the modern day, you know, he basically tried to erase those movies. Now, one caveat to that, I totally have DVDs released by Lucasfilm that have the theatrical versions of the movies on them.
Yeah. So
like those aren't like not there. It's not like they don't exist, but you can tell it was done with a middle finger.
Yeah,
like
they don't look.
They're basically just ripped versions of the Laserdisc, and they look awful. Like, it's like, really, you couldn't have gone in and cleaned that up like you did in the 90s.
He's like, here you go, really? Fine, F you.
Yeah, no, he burned that. He hit the burn button with his middle finger. You know, he was like, come on, dude.
Nice.
Well, like, how far do you want to go as a purist, though? How far do you want to go as a purist? If you're like, I want the original cut of the movie, then, well, why do you want it to be restored and remastered and all that stuff? Because that's not the original.
Well, I guess you could look at it that way.
And there's like 10 different audio mixes too. So pick which audio mix you want to go with. Yeah, different mixes have different takes. Actually, I was listening to Blast Point's podcast, and they went over like all the differences just between the stereo and mono mixes that came out in 1977. And there's like alternate takes used just between audio mixes. Then every subsequent release, like VHS to THX remastered VHS to Laserdisc to DVD, they all had different audio. It's weird. So yeah, like when you're like, I want the unaltered versions. Well, which one is that?
You need a time machine for that. You got to go watch them in the theater the year they came out.
Yeah, and depends on which theater you went to.
Expectation.
Yeah.
Back then, depending on which theater you went to, depending on what technology they had, which determined what version they got. A lot of theaters were still mono back then. That's why there was a mono and a stereo mix. If you went to the Stereophonic Cinematheque Theater.
Well, no, they were working on the audio mix when it actually was released May 25th of 77.
Yeah.
The mix wasn't finished.
Yeah.
Or at least the stereo mix, I should say.
Right. So as they shipped out more copies later, they got a different audio mix. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It just never mattered that much to me. I mean, I would like to see the original versions right now just to go see how different it looks. And I've always wondered what people would say when you see them back to back, because you're so used to the enhanced versions now. I really wonder if people are going to look back and go, well, you know what? Actually, this is kind of empty. There's really not a lot here. Like, I wonder if
I don't think anyone's going to say that, but maybe they will. I don't know. I'm the opposite. See, I don't really know the changed ones that well.
That's all I've ever really seen, because when you were first able to own them, at least when my parents would actually buy them for me when they first came out, or, you know, when I had a job, you know, and I could go buy stuff, it was the first ones I could get was the special editions So it was all the
Okay,
added
so you got
crap.
the gold box trilogy.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Okay.
The first one that we had, and so for me, I'm used to that. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I actually saw all of the original trilogy in the theater. I mean, like I told you guys, I was 4 years old in 1980, and they put out episode 4 a month before Empire came out. So I saw those when I was 4, and then I saw, Jedi when I was 7. So I've seen the originals, and I, remember them. I saw them several times in the theater. But for me, I've never understood the giant backlash against all the visual changes. It's like the story is exactly the same. Like, who gives a shit? I don't get it.
Han shot first might have been really the only first major offense, or the Han not shooting first, because that did change the story a little bit. It changed the character.
Oh God, you're gonna be one of those, man.
I like this guy. We should have him on more often.
Dude, have we met?
Oh,
did you listen? Never mind.
Yeah.
No, it did change Han Solo though, didn't it?
Not at all.
Okay,
Not at all.
Let me start over. Let's ditch what I said about Han Solo for a second. That was a callback to a different movie where, God, I really remember. It was The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I don't remember which movie it was. It was a Western. I don't watch Westerns because I'm that guy. But basically, it was It was basically like, I remember somebody was sitting in a bat. I guess it might have been John Wayne sitting in a. I can't wait till we get back. This guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
We never do either. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. But no, like he's like sitting in a bathtub or something, or reading a paper, and somebody comes in to like heckle him or something, and he shoots him like from the bathtub without moving. That was basically a callback. That was Lucas's version of a callback to that. And so like for 15, 20 years later, for him to say, well, I don't know if it was that long, but he was like, well, we don't want people to think that Han Solo's a bad guy. So we don't want him to murder somebody in cold blood. So we're going to say that Greedo shoots at him first so that he had to kill him out of self-defense. But it's like, dude, do you not remember that callback?
It doesn't.
And do you not remember that the character was supposed to be ambiguous at first? Like, you weren't supposed to just buy into him and trust him. He's a seedy smuggler found in a backwater cantina that Obi-Wan already told you is basically a hole, and watch your back.
Right. You can't trust anybody here.
Right.
I don't buy it. It's like all the stuff that Han Solo does still happened after that. So it's like, one laser blast, like people don't all of a sudden watch every single other thing Han Solo did and go, oh man, he's totally a pussy now. Like that doesn't happen. So to say that it changes his character, I think is bullshit, man. I argue that all the time. It's like Han Solo is still Han Solo. And I mean, I know people who were introduced to Star Wars, watching the version where Han did not shoot first, and they have the same outlook on Han Solo as I do, and everybody else. So that's one of those things we're talking about. How deep do you want to go? Like, I think that's going a little too deep. That's my opinion anyway.
Maybe. It just seems like a lot of work, and for a lazy person, I don't know why you would just go through all that trouble to like spark that kind of controversy. Like, it just doesn't compute with me, like why you would do more work.
I think he probably didn't even know it would cause a backlash.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't know. If he was wearing the Han shot first shirt.
Yeah.
He knows.
If it means as little as you say it does, then why put in the work to change it?
Because he had ideas for his story. It was his work. He can do whatever the hell he wants to it.
Well, clearly he thought it was important enough to change in later editions because he didn't feel that the character was being expressed properly in the first version of that scene.
Well, that's fine. He failed because nobody has ever looked at Han Solo differently. I mean, that's the thing. How many people out there have you talked to about Han Solo where they're like, oh, well, he's kind of a good guy. Like, he's not really a scoundrel. I remember in episode 4, he didn't shoot first. Like, he's not really a scoundrel. He's not. He was just.
I liked him before the special editions.
Yeah. It's like people always look at Han Solo as we all know Han Solo to be, no matter what happened with who shot first. So
let's tie it all together though. Let's look at what Han Solo does. I can't believe we're getting back into this, but this is cool. let's look at what Han Solo does. Let's look at the summary of his actions in A New Hope.
Here we go.
The unaltered version, the original take. You meet him, he shoots first. Then he BS's and shoots his way out of the docking bay 94.
Killing local policemen.
Yes.
Think about that.
Okay.
Counts.
Then he refuses to help when they're taken on board the Death Star until he's bribed with more money. Then
better her than me.
Right. And then he
Thanks,
bolts.
douche.
Then he bolts when he's asked to join their cause, runs away with the money, and only at the end, at the very last minute, does he decide to come around and help him out. That's the big turning moment of his character because of all the things he did in the movie up to that point.
So Han Solo was an ass. That's why JT likes him.
Yeah. So how does the one laser blast change any of that?
That's out of character with everything else he did in the movie up until he came back for Luke on the Death Star run.
No, not at all. I completely disagree. Again, nobody has. It's not like you have two factions of Han Solo fans.
The original intent was for you to not trust him and just assume that he's never going to help.
You still don't trust him.
He's only on the side of the rebels because it benefits him until the last second when he does something altruistic.
He's shooting a goofy green alien. Who gives a
Or he left like his charger at the base and needed to go. I don't know. Could have been for selfish reasons.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just you don't have different. It's not. It's like you have people who love the prequels or hate the prequels and love the prequels. So there's like two different outlooks there. But Han Solo, everybody just looks at him as Han Solo. It's not like Han shot first fans or Greedo shot first fans, and it's a totally different character on opposite ends of the spectrum, and people battling back and forth. I mean, it doesn't exist.
Maybe there would be if this was the only movie Han Solo was in.
I don't think so.
Disappeared after this.
Here's another thing.
Because I think a lot of the stuff we love about Han Solo also came from his actions in the second and third film.
Well, yeah, that's true.
True, but the special edition also ruined it in this case too, with the whole Han shot first thing. As soon as you insert that scene with Jabba, and one of his lines is, "Why did you fry poor Greedo?" Well, I don't know. He shot at me.
He tried to hurt me, Jabba. You should have seen it. He started it for sure. Yeah.
Right? Like,
come on, dude. Really?
That line from Jabba doesn't make any sense if Greedo was the one who shot first.
You know what line also doesn't make any sense? Even I get bored sometimes. You think I had a choice? Like, dude, verbatim. And that's like in the movie. Like, if you're going to go in and heavily edit the movie, you're going to leave both of those lines untouched, but you're going to change who shot first. Again, it just seems like way too much work.
Well, I will say this about that. I mean, it's that I give you because there's stuff that needed to be cleaned up that wasn't. I mean, the Blu-ray is supposed to be the definitive edition, but you still have letterboxing. When you look close, there's still letterboxing in the original trilogy. There's a scene in episode 1 where Sebulba is right up on Anakin's ass in the pod race, and they forgot to put Sebulba in the cockpit of the pod racer.
And they pointed out in the commentary track.
They pointed out in the commentary, like, yeah, we forgot to put that in there. And they didn't fix it for the Blu-ray and put Sebulba in there.
Next Blu-ray release.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, so it's like, I wonder, did they go into so much detail with it that they didn't want to scrub it 150% clean? They wanted a little bit of that stuff to be in there to keep it at least somewhat true to the source material. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe
that's like,
maybe
again,
in the next release, Sebulba will be in the pod racer and he'll be wearing a Han shot first t-shirt
with letterboxing around him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Throw it all into one scene.
Doing like a 4:3, yeah, like 30 millimeter camera. Yeah.
You have to only watch it in IMAX.
I'd buy that Blu-ray. I don't know what I'd play it on though. It probably wouldn't work in my VCR.
I'd buy that Blu-ray because anytime they put something out that's official Star Wars, I'm like, I'm buying it. I have like every DVD
I can't
release.
afford that.
Dude, I'm such an idiot. Like I have every single thing they have on Blu-ray. I got it. I have it all on DVD if it was on DVD. On my phone and my tablet, I have all 8 movies digitally, so I can watch them anywhere, anytime, no matter where I go. I have Star Wars at my fingertips. It's like, so if they put that out, I'd be like, well, there goes another $75.
You got the Ewok movie,
right?
I do not have the Ewok movie. We will not discuss that.
I do on VHS.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great, man. You found another one of me. Speaking of clones, this is great.
Yeah, right. Did man,
Yikes.
we actually, there's an episode we did last year I think it was, but AJ found a list of, it was 12, right, AJ?
11 at the time.
Yeah, 11. They ranked all 11 Star Wars movies, which included the 2 Ewok movies, the Clone Wars cartoon movie, and the holiday special. And they actually ranked the Ewok movies higher than episodes 1 and 2. And I was like, you are on drugs.
There was some serious hatred going on there.
That's a look at me. Like, I get that, you know. That's clickbait, you know, is what that is.
God, I hate
oh
clickbait.
my god, look at how original I am. I just said something ridiculous and now people are mad. You know, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of social
there, done
media
that.
and trolls and clickbait. That just I long for a world where there's actual like cyber police, where someone types something on the internet and then all of a sudden within 5 minutes there's like the mafia is at their door and they beat it down and just beat them within an inch of their life. Be like, if you're not going to say that to someone's face, then we're going to beat the out of you. Like,
wow,
that's a world
I know who to not vote for.
Oh yeah, well, right. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So when I see this clickbait crap, that's why you know that Plinkett Red Letter Media stuff. There's a guy I just like to hit with a tractor.
Oh, I love that guy, man. He's great. And you know why he's great? Because his humor is just so completely off kilter and it's distracting. And like, I get that. Like, because whenever I don't have anything cool to say, I just make a really, really ridiculously bad joke. And that's, you know, that's blown up a few times in my face. But no, I like that, because what I like about the internet now is this idea of it being a character, you know, because you have two different types of commentator online. You've got the people like us that are just being us for the most part.
Yep.
But then you've got people like Plinkett, where it's like, obviously this guy isn't a real person, and everything that he's doing is everything that he's doing is for laughs. And it's also the same with like the angry video game nerd, you know. He's just a character. He's not the real dude behind all of it, you know. Yeah,
it's a persona.
And, right. We talked to him a couple months ago, and but it was we just talked to him, not the nerd character. But yeah, it was
he was out of character.
He was very out of character. But no, so like, and that's, I love stuff like that. I like kind of that pseudo, and like that's why even on my podcast we kind of toe the line with that a little bit. But again, I'm like you. I don't want to say something just to piss people off. You know, it at least has to be at least somewhat rooted in real opinion, or have something to back it up with. But sorry, getting back to Star Wars.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'm the off topic king. But
no problem. Well,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, since we were talking about Lucas and directing and all that stuff, I did want to ask you, because we actually haven't been able to discuss this yet, so this will be new to all of us.
Okay.
What's everybody's opinion on the announcement of J.J. Abrams directing Episode 9? I will start. I don't know. I don't know what to think about this.
Solid take. Good.
Yeah.
Way to really spearhead that conversation.
Well, again, Episode 7.
All right, AJ, 2nd and 10, your turn.
No, I mean, it's like, I'm very much on record saying that I don't like how Episode 7 completely mimicked Episode 4, even though we do have that episode where I realized it probably had to be done that way, and I talked myself into that, which was incredible. But I'm nervous about Episode 8, because we're seeing a whole lot of things that are mirroring stuff from Empire. So now you give the 9th movie, you know, the 3rd movie in the new trilogy, to the guy that basically started that trend. I'm not really very confident in this decision. So,
well, I'm actually right on board with it. I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does with a second turn in the chair. I mean, the first one, there was no template, and yes, they did kind of go for the cash grab and some low hanging fruit, but now he's going to be given the same pieces in a very different orientation, and now he's got to figure out how to tie it all together and reach a satisfactory conclusion. So I'm really curious to see, one, well, first we got to see The Last Jedi and see how different that one is from 7. Like, is it going to look visually different? Or is the change of director really going to impact it the same way like the change from episode 4 to episode 5 was so drastic visually because Kirshner had a totally different idea on how to light the sets and, create moods and do all that stuff. Maybe going back to JJ style after Rian Johnson is going to be a really interesting kind of contrast to see if maybe it provides kind of like a through line,
Yeah, I don't know. What
is he just directing or is he co-writing again?
Co-writing.
Yeah.
I guess that's a tough one then. If you're afraid that he's gonna try to steal some ideas again, but like you said, AJ, you got to see what episode 8 is first. If episode 8 goes completely off the rails, he's got to follow that. You can't just go back to copying off of something else if 8 goes in a totally different direction. So
he pretty much borrowed from the entire original trilogy for 7, so there's not a whole lot to retread at this point.
Yeah. he exhausted the toolbox. I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
Well, did you like Return of the Jedi?
Loved it.
Because I feel like that's where we're going. Honestly, and this is so my favorite character out of the new trilogy, even I've obviously only seen one movie out of the new trilogy, is actually the Kylo Ren character because he's emo Darth Vader and I love that about him. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what is done with his character in Star Wars 8. And this is more of an overview of how I'm going to feel about 9, regardless of who directed it. But
yeah, I feel the same way though. I think they made him. Yeah. They ultimately made him look like a huge puss by the end of episode 7. So he's only got.
I think.
He's going to have to be a total. Like we're going to have to be like, oh my god, I hope I don't ever run into Kylo Ren in a dark alley at the end of. Star Wars 8,
that's what I feel like him and Phasma. I think they're going to actually do something useful with that makes you appreciate
really
the character
yeah.
instead of looking at them as a throwaway character in like you said, emo Darth Vader. So
right, and I think that with JJ, I think it's going to be rough because I think JJ's all about the flashy, in movies, and that it's really one of those like. Because I mean, you look at the Star Trek movies, and they're very, it's very flashy, very lens flare, very. It's almost like the only thing I can really think of to compare it to is kind of like the chill, cool of the Marvel movies. That you kind of get that impression of like everything's all about kind of how it looks, and the characterization is there, but it's kind of just kind of there because it looks cool.
Okay.
It sounds cool.
Right.
So like I think it's very easy to sit down and watch a movie like The Force Awakens and be completely enraptured by it because it's got all the stuff that you feel like needs to visually be there and musically be there. But after watching it so many times, I kind of came away feeling a little bit more empty about it than I should. I mean, I'm still excited to see the next films, but it's one of those and I don't have a hatred for it, but I just feel like, man, this could have been really cool, but it wasn't really all that I was expecting. And I'm kind of afraid that we're going to get that with I've just had this bad feeling that like Star Wars 8 is going to be amazing. And then we're going to go to 9 and it's just going to like tie up all the loose ends real nicely in a nice little bow. And then we're going to all, feel really good about ourselves afterwards. and I don't like that. I don't like feeling good or happy. So we can't have that,
Nice.
So sorry, JJ, but no, I don't want to have positive resolution. I want like everybody to die in a suicide pact at the end of it or something,
I have it end like Rogue One.
Yeah, and on a down note. Yeah, Rogue One was fantastic, by the way.
Thank you. That I got a buddy of mine that we went to dinner with tonight, and he wants to come on probably in a few weeks.
Yeah,
and our debate may be Rogue One versus Episode 7, and because he said it, Episode 7 is so much better than Rogue One. I'm like, bull crap.
Heavily.
Yeah, I'm like, bull crap, man. The best way to describe that comparison for me is that I left the theater after Rogue One feeling the way that I wished I had felt leaving the theater watching Episode 7. That was, Episode 7, like I still to this day cannot put my finger on it. It's just, I like you said, it's,
I think Dan nailed it. It leaves you feeling empty. Like I don't need to go back and rewatch that one because there's no more meat on that bone.
Yeah.
Nope, it's all gone. It tasted really great going down, but now there's nothing to come back to.
That's one of my big excitement points for Last Jedi is they set up all these characters that seem to be compelling, but they just weren't, like Phasma and like Kylo Ren.
Yeah,
Kylo
yeah.
Ren actually had a good start. I was happy with him in that movie. But now I want to see, okay, let's give it another go. Let's revisit these characters and see what you can really do with them.
I don't know if it's the love for Darth Vader or not, but I felt like Kylo Ren lost everything when the mask came off. Like
there's a lot of that.
I can't quite, like John said, you can't quite put your finger on it, but as soon as the mask came off when Rey was in that chair, it was just like, that's not the same badass that was, mauling the people at the beginning of the movie and stuff. It was just, that was the emo turn.
That was the cool factor, though, right? Because it's got to be cool and flashy. So, like, oh, he just took his helmet off. Like, look at how edgy that is.
Right.
Like, he just did it.
First thing I wonder is how the hell he got all the
hair.
hair inside the stupid little helmet.
It had to have smelled like, I don't know, like hair oil or grease or something.
Pomade.
Right.
Ugh.
You know what? You know why you weren't scared by him, Steve? Because he had that little pee-pee scar. But now you're going to be scared by him and think he's a badass because Rian Johnson gave him that giant gaping wound thing on his face.
Think J.J. Abrams is going to stick his middle finger up and put the scar back where the hell he wanted it in the first movie?
I'm telling you, that was one of the best ideas we had on that last show, was talking about them moving the scar back.
That would be great if JJ just moved it back. That would probably be a selling point alone for the movie,
right?
You'd walk out, it is, regardless of how empty the script goes, you'd be like, "Hey, you moved the scar back, though."
That's going to be the new Wilhelm scream of the Star Wars universe. Is Kylo's scar? It's gonna, like, pretty soon someone's going to put it on his arm.
Now, what if
like
they just
10 movies down the road?
It's a very simple compromise, guys. He just gets hit in the face with a lightsaber again in the original spot. So in the third one, he's got 2 scars.
He's going to start
Totally
looking.
makes sense, guys.
He's going to start looking like Abdullah the Butcher.
All right. Or he could go really off the rails and maybe have him get burnt up really bad, so he's just unrecognizable, and then you have to put like a helmet and stuff on.
Cut off a limb or 2.
Yeah, oh God. That's such a... Copyright it. Let's mark it down.
They're just going to troll everything.
That's great,
they've
guys,
already done.
and cut. Yeah.
Actually, there's your original point.
Drinks on me.
There's your original thing in Force Awakens. Nobody lost a hand. Tons of lightsaber fights and nothing was cut off.
And they put a shield around the weak spot. That was cool.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's so funny too because the X-wing pilots are like incredulous. They're like they put a thing there. Like,
aren't we supposed to?
I don't know what to
shoot
do.
that?
It's supposed to be gaping open.
Yeah. What the hell? Aren't we supposed to just be able to shoot it? Like, what the hell? Like,
man, I wish it was the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least they did an awesome job of explaining the exhaust port of the Death Star away with Rogue One. I thought that's one of the most ingenious things Star Wars has ever done, if you ask me.
Oh yeah.
The whole, the guy actually designed it that way on purpose, specifically to sabotage the thing.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote an entire novel just to explain a 2-meter wide exhaust port on the Death Star. That to me is brilliant.
Well, it's weird too because like Rogue One was so like, and it's weird because a lot of the reasons I would criticize the prequels about being too Star Warsy and too whatever, for some reason, Rogue One was so visually similar to what I had originally experienced with Star Wars as a kid. So I'm watching it as I remembered it, and it was literally like, I mean, did anybody else have like a rock hard erection the first time they saw Darth Vader come on screen with James Earl Jones' voice? Like,
oh yeah,
and have that intimidating presence. Like, it was like, it completely blew me away because I was like, oh my God, this is the quote unquote real Darth Vader.
Yep.
Even though it wasn't, right? It wasn't props.
No, and I agree with you. It's like one of the big arguments that people make about the 2 new movies is people say, oh, it looks and feels like the original trilogy. And, I think Rogue One looks identical to the original trilogy. And
it does.
They changed the stormtrooper outfits. You shut up. I'm mad.
I'm not in the 501st like you. I don't notice the differences.
No, there's actually a lot of differences because one was machined properly with, new modern technology. And the other ones were handmade on a shoestring budget.
Yeah. You should see how many different versions of those TK outfits there are. At Celebration, Dan, they actually in the 501st room, they had like a line of the Stormtrooper helmets. You're like, There's that many versions of an actual regular old TK Stormtrooper?
Yeah, when you're going for
there's
501st,
like little subtle differences between all of them.
Yeah, you've got to specify which costume you're going for to get certified, because there are variations. And it's just down to production crap. Like Return of the Jedi, the details are a little softer because they made those because they needed more than they had on the previous productions. They made molds of the original suits, and like a copy of a copy, the details are a little bit rounded off because, it's a copy. You're not going to get the same level of detail. So you take a semi-detailed original costume and then pull a mold from it, you're going to lose a little bit of detail. Much like a cassette, if you know anything about those.
No, what's that?
Yeah, so
no idea what you're talking about.
So yeah, even the Stormtroopers didn't really change in decoration between episode 5 and 6, but the armor itself is a little bit misshapen because it's a copy of the suits rather than another mold release from the original production line.
I just figured that the Empire was losing a little bit of funding between, their horrendous defeats, and so the quality of their suits just went down.
You're right. When you're funding 2 Death Stars,
yeah,
we're low on credits. That Death Star blew up. We got to build another one that's bigger. Why don't we cut budget anywhere? Like, what about the Stormtrooper outfit?
I need to make a withdrawal.
Yeah. You got a torso? You got an ATM on that torso, light bright?
Yes, please. Just hand it over. Yeah. You have some ID, sir?
Yeah, my Force lightning, you prick.
Didn't there used to be a banking clan for this?
Hey,
well, not really yet. No.
I'm sorry, Emperor, but your face doesn't look like it does on your picture. The Jedi did this to my face. Yes.
I was in a fight, for Christ's sakes. What do you want from me?
They tried to kill me. I gotta throw this out here though. Like, okay, so going back to the prequels for just a second. Okay, the Emperor was fantastic throughout those movies.
Oh yeah,
absolutely the best character. The one I know I rooted for the most because he was so evil and he was like the classic villain. So it's like any decision this guy makes, it's going to be the evil one. And It's so consistent. It's so refreshing to see throughout every movie.
Yep. And I love I love the fact that he was also a politician. So there's almost like a little statement there, but I just, like you said, he's obviously evil. Every decision is going to be like, ooh. And I'm one of the people that loves the political aspect of the prequels because it wasn't just, well, we're bad guys. Now we're going to get even more bad. It was, he one guy pulling the strings and he, turned the whole galaxy on its ear. And it was like, holy wow, this is like,
well, yeah, I love how he funded the bad guys.
Yep.
He funded the robots basically, or the I keep wanting to say the machine. Yeah. I keep wanting to say the Machine Empire, and that's from Star Wars, or that's from Power Rangers. But
Droid Army.
Yeah, the Droid Army. He funded all of that. He funded the Trade Federation. He caused the conflict, and that goes all the way back to the Phantom Menace, which I just thought was really, really, really cool.
And beforehand, actually, if you love your audiobooks so much, check out Darth Plagueis sometime. That's a great book. It's not official canon anymore, but it.
And where can I listen to that?
I think if you go to perhaps audibletrial.com/NHC, you can start your free 30-day trial and download an audiobook.
Wow, that is good information to have.
I love the game show sound effect at the end of that, Steve. It's just so good.
I try to put my 2 cents in.
Nice.
I wish I could hear those. Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty good, man. So we got the Porg watching, so that'll be a nice addition. So, but yeah. Well, on that note, why don't we close up shop for this episode? Dan, thanks so much for coming on with this, man. Why don't you get your plugs in one more time?
Yeah. If you just cannot get enough of the sound, you can't get enough of my voice, or you hate everything that I say and just want to continue to offend yourself, go to www.discussmetal.com and listen to me trash. Hopefully, your favorite band. That's pretty much all I got going for it.
The show is Discography Discussion, and on an upcoming episode here sometime soon, I will actually be on there. You can hear my dulcet tones talking about the mighty Dream Theater, one of my 2 favorite bands. So yeah, go check that out. It's definitely a really cool show. I know I've listened to a bunch of episodes now since I was on, and it's very interesting. So, AJ, you have something you want to add here?
Yeah, well, on the last show, I had mentioned that there was a Star Trek Discovery podcast starting up with me, and it's actually out right now. You can go to goldenspiralmedia.com or just go to StarTrekDiscoveryPodcast.com, and the first episode is up there. And actually, tomorrow night, we'll be recording the next one, and next week, we will have reviews of the first 2 episodes since those released this weekend. In fact, the day this comes out.
We're all a bunch of podcast whores. Steve, what about that new podcast you're doing?
The one where when we get done talking here, I don't turn any of this stuff on for 2 weeks. That podcast.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. That's it. That's the one right there.
.com.
.com.
That was the whole web address.
.org, .net, all that stuff. I bought a lot of domain names. Yeah.
You know, Disturbed wrote a song about your show. It's called The Sound of Silence.
Yeah, there you go.
Horrid song, by the way.
Pretty sure they didn't write that.
Yeah, it's Simon and Garfunkel, and don't get me started on Disturbed, please. Let's not do that.
Oh, you don't like dropping plates?
Nice, well played, sir. But, so, anyways, guys, thanks for checking out another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. Don't forget, we are at nerfherdercouncil.com. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter at NHC Podcast. Ear Peeler. Spreaker is our main platform. Don't forget, we are on iTunes. Go leave us a 5-star review, because the more 5-star reviews we get, the more visibility we get. So leave us some good reviews here. We are on Google Play. Don't forget, we do have our YouTube page where you can check us out. You can leave us feedback via email at feedback@nerfherdercouncil.com. If you want to call and leave us a voicemail, we'll play your beautiful message on the air here. It's 440-987-WARS. So, Dan, what is your Twitter handle there?
Oh, my Twitter handle. My Twitter handle is at DiscussMetalDan. Or if you just care about discography discussion, you can find us at DiscussMetal.
Very cool. Well, once again, thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate you hanging out with us for a bit. You have to come on again sometime, and we'll have some more awesome discussion. Maybe we can, riff on, The Last Jedi when it comes out. We'll have you on and get
Sounds good to me,
your
man.
opinions on that. So
talk next year when the Han Solo movie comes out and completely changes your entire outlook on the entire character from beginning to end.
I've never been.
Oh my God! If he had shot Greedo first, I don't even know if I could. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Right.
Well, no, thank you guys very much. It's definitely a pleasure.
You agree with me so much. You're welcome on anytime.
Sweet. I'll cash that check whenever I'm able.
Yeah, right. AJ at first was like, all right, we'll have this guy on one time, just to shut you up, JT. At the end of the show, he's like, dude, you need to come on every week.
Right, now you're outnumbered. I love it.
That's fine. So, anyways, until next time, I am your host, JT, at Dog Pound Jedi. He's AJ.
At Drake Adams 579.
He's Steve.
At JSteve1005.
And we will catch you next time.
Bucket of bolts is never gonna get us past that blockade.
This bucket's got a few surprises left in her. Plus, me and Chewie are on it. Ain't that right, Chewie?
Hell yeah, you my nerf herder.
You my nerf herder.
I don't know. It's not much. It's like 15 cents or something like that.
Hey, it's something. We have one Patreon guy that gives us $1 every month, which is actually awesome.
I keep wanting to set up a Patreon, but head over here, your buddy, he don't want to do it. He's like, no one's going to pay money for us. I'm like, well, they might.
Dude, I'm the exact same way. Like, Joe set the Patreon up, and I was like, dude, this is the dumbest thing ever. Nobody listens to our show. Nobody cares about our opinion, and we're not going to start asking people for money.
Yeah.
Like, I maintain that and he just did it anyway because he kind of controls all that stuff.
Right. Yeah,
and so there you go, AJ. Just sign it up. And
right. I mean,
don't say anything about it until we make like $4 and then go.
Yeah. Then I was like, Joe, this is a really great idea, man. I just want to let you know from the bottom of my heart that McDonald's Coke that I had the other day was really,
right? When you come back down here with another stack of stickers or something, be like, guess where I got the money for this?
Good job up.